Despite being in our own world for billions of years, humanity has yet to scratch the surface of our own ocean. The dark abysses of the water are home to the Earth's most mysterious entities, and in Genshin, such isn't that different. Welcome to the Theories in the Dark Depths of Enkanomiya, where I begin my speculations and theories on what could possibly lie in the deep waters under Watatsumi Island. Disclaimer: this is all just a theory and a compilation of interesting speculations and finds I found based on real-life oceanography and religion. Nothing in this video is indicative of the final product. So let's begin. Enkanomiya is known as the area underneath Watatsumi Island, which housed the ancestors of the Sangonomiya. It was once known as the Byakuya no Kuni, or the Land of the White Night, Midnight Sun, but was changed to the Abyssal Depths Palace, or Enkanomiya. Not much is known, but during the Archon War, a group of stragglers were trapped in the depths of the ocean. These people were terrorized by the dragon air of the depths, and only survived through the light of the Ohirume no Omikoshi, or the great god of the sun. However, the god soon disappeared and the people were abandoned. The people would be soon found by Orobashi as the great serpent fled into the dark sea. The god that had lost everything met the abandoned people with nothing within the ocean depths. The great snake god would defeat the dragon air of the depths and trap it within the ocean floor, and by using the coral branches on Orobashi's body, it would give light to the children who were curled up in the darkness. And with that, let's begin theorizing several things about Enkanomiya. First is the oceanography. I believe that by looking at the real-world counterpart, we can guess what kind of enemies we might fight. The names Midnight Sun and Abyssal Depths might be a reference to the real-world layers of the ocean, specifically the bathypelagic and abyssopelagic levels. The bathyal zone is a zone 1,000 meters to 4,000 meters below the ocean surface, and is known as the point sunlight stops piercing through the water. The lack of sunlight and oxygen means that some species in the bathyal zone do not have eyes. The bathypelagic zone is home to several mortifying-looking fish, specifically deep anglerfishes and dragonfishes. Additionally, the abyssal zone may be a reference to how the ocean holds Genshin's most primordial entities. Similar to the bathyal zone, the abyssal zone is covered in sheer cold and darkness because of how far down it is. But what's more interesting is that according to scientists, over 90% of the marine life needed to adapt to the dark conditions of the two zones and developed a form of bioluminescence. In-game, we know that there was a great god of the sun that provided light for the people, and that Orobashi also gave light by breaking off the branch corals in its back. But let's move on to the more religious part of Enkanomiya. The ocean being a symbolism of forbidden and unknown knowledge is heavily popular, especially with the rise of H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu. The ocean, in popular mythos, is an abyssal world of primordial gods that never made it to the light of day. For example, in Mandaeism, the world of darkness is the underworld located below Tibil, and is ruled by its king Ur, or the Leviathan. The world of darkness houses the great primordial sea known as the Ocean of Sep. So I believe the secret lies in the gods mentioned in the tale. The dark sea mentioned in the Jade branch of the distant sea in which Orobashi fled to may be the same as the dark sea mentioned in the Bit of Erudicite and the Drunkard's Tale. The coastal nations of Teyvat refer to the region beyond the protection of the Seven as the Dark Sea. It is said that many defeated gods refused to live under the new order of the Seven, so they fled to remote islands and became evil gods. So, I want to dissect the gods that are mentioned. First is that the Orihume no Omikoshi may be a reference to Amaterasu, or the Ohirume no Muchi no Kami. Amaterasu is the Japanese goddess of the sun. It was never mentioned if they also came from the Archon War to defy the gods, but since they do have the title of God of Blank, it's safer to say that they did. Next is Orobashi. Orobashi's title means Great God of the Ocean. Orobashi, or Orobashi no Mikoto, is the god that the people of Watatsumi Island worshipped, and a being that fought during the Archon War. By extension, I believe its name derives from Orobas, the 55th demonic spirit who conjures perfect predictions and never deceives anyone. However, I don't think that's sufficient enough because Orobas in the Ars Goetia is depicted as a horse. The name Orobashi, though, may come from several myths regarding a large serpent. First is the Yamata no Orochi, a gigantic serpent with multiple heads that fought the storm god Susanoo. This would tie in well with Orobashi being killed by Beelzebul, the Electro-Archon. But what's more interesting is that the Great Serpent is only one serpent, and not like the Hydra we assume it would be. So another inspiration I can think of is the Ouroboros, the ancient symbol depicting a serpent eating its own tail. The Ouroboros is seen as a symbol for eternity, a renewal of life, death and rebirth. This could be a good antithesis to Ei's concept of eternity, since both are deities of Inazuma in a way. Ei's concept of eternity is that the present stands still, but Ouroboros' eternity is cyclical. This can also tie in with the philosophy in the Tiara of Frost, in which at the end of the cycle, the earth shall be renewed. Thus, eternity is cyclical. Urabashi could have realized that idea and went against the Archon's interpretation of eternity. We also know that despite seeming benevolent to the people, the Tatarigami was a curse caused by the festering of the slain serpent god. So something must have happened that caused hostility. Now, there are a lot of great serpents in mythology, and I believe Urabashi is just a representation of all of those. But I believe that some of the stories about great serpents reflect the last entity of the Dark Ocean. The Dragonair of the Depths is an entity we have never heard of before in the game besides through Enkanomiya. This is the mysterious entity that terrorized the ancestors of Watatsumi Island and was promptly sealed by Urabashi. I apologize, I digressed again. In short, Watatsumi Island's holy soil problem is acting up again. As a result, our soil is slowly bleaching, becoming holy soil. If this continues, Watatsumi Island will one day become a desert as pale as the moonlight. According to tradition, every several centuries, we must take advantage of a moment when the spirit veins flow smoothly to break the barrier between Enkanomiya and Sangonomiya. You will need to dive down to Enkanomiya and retrieve a jade coral branch left behind by our Omikami, which was used to suppress the Dragonair of the Depths. We have many jade coral branches that can be used for this suppression. But if this continues, the Dragonair of the Depths may one day break through the barrier and invade Watatsumi Island on the surface. It is possible that the Dragonair is an abyss entity as well, but there isn't much to go off of. But I want to give attention to its potential literary inspiration. First is the Hydra. The Hydra is a water snake-like monster with 9 heads. In the 2.0 cutscene trailer, we see that there is an entity in the background that simultaneously moves 3 appendages. We know that Urabashi is a large serpent, so it's possible that this might be the Dragonair of the Depths manifested visually. This could also be the inspiration of Yamata no Orochi. But in reference to the Hydra, there is another entity that also mentions it. The entity is known as Dagon from the Necronomicon Gnosis. The book itself is a literary work by Asenath Mason that takes inspiration from the Necronomicon, but it is a work of fiction. This is not based off of actual religious texts, but it can give an interesting perspective in the Dark Sea's themes of the Lovecraftian mythos and the mysteries of the ocean. Dagon is an entity that appears in many ancient sources and is known as the Lord of Watery Depths. Dagon was considered the father of Baal and was the lord of the earth and the underworld. Dagon was the leader of the Deep Ones, which are entities that have human shapes but with characteristic fish features. To invoke the will of Dagon, there's a ritual that says the following. Let me emerge in the source of force and dark wisdom, the salty waters of your domain. Reveal to me secrets of power and give me the treasures of wisdom. I wish to be reborn in the realm of you and Mother Hydra. I become now a sea creation, the manifestation of the Black Sea, silent and overwhelming. And last but not the least is the inspiration of the Leviathan. I've mentioned a while back that Genshin Impact's Dark Sea may have been inspired by the World of Darkness and Mandeism. The Leviathan is a large sea monster that is known to be an embodiment of chaos. In Christianity, the Leviathan reveals itself in the Book of Revelation as a 7-headed dragon. John describes the appearance of a second sign, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his head, 7 diadems. But regardless, it would be cool to finally fight a Hydra entity because we never really got to fight Asael as much as he was just in the background. Plus, if this is an entity of the Abyss, it might even connect to Asael. But regardless, yes, these are all my thoughts about the Dark Sea Gods and about Enkanomiya. So, my name is Aster, and thank you so much for chilling with us.
You do not recognize the bodies in the water.
You do not recognize the bodies in the water.
You do
not recognize the bodies in the water.
You recognize the bodies in the water.